Hey, welcome into the Wednesday edition. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Wednesday morning. Joseph, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. Just another amazing Tuesday of SEC basketball. Just like to point that out.
I forgot that was happening. How'd that go?
There was like, four great games, but Florida lost at home to Missouri, which was stunning. And Alabama lost at home to Ole Miss, which was also stunning.
Wow.
There you go. Have you heard of these?
Is the conference
schools
losing a little bit of its luster? No. What's happening to the heavyweights right now?
No, well, I mean, I guess you could look at it that way. Auburn didn't have Janai Broome last night, and they still blew out Mississippi State, which is like a 3-seed quality team. But Florida, tough for Florida and Bama. But I mean, those
I
other
watched
teams
Florida earlier this year. They look great.
They did look very good. They played much better against the Vols at home than they did against Missouri. But no, I don't think it. I mean, now that you're playing in conference, what you did out of conference doesn't ever change, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're going to get.
How does this affect your bracketology for the next time you have to do it?
Well, I mean, I just did it yesterday, so a lot of people complained, which is great. I was called an idiot. I mean, like some amazing comments in there about how stupid I am. So we'll see. We have to wait and see what the weekend brings, and then we'll do another one every Tuesday.
That's
every
good.
Tuesday, yes.
That's very good. Keyser,
get excited.
How we doing? What's going on?
Morning. Yeah, a little tired, doing well though. So
big dub for the Preds last night.
Hey man, that's interesting win last night for sure. Same guy scored all three of Vegas's goals. So yeah, anytime you can lead 4-0 though.
I will say it was 4-0. And I looked at Jim Diamond, who sits next to me at the games. I was like, you watch, this will somehow end up being a 1-goal game. Sure enough, about 4 minutes left in the third, it's 4-3. And I'm like, oh boy, this could be hairy. But credit to the Preds. They closed the deal last night.
Yeah, they did. Got me another dub.
Got another dub. That's right. Joe Rexrode back on the board. And Preds picked the click. We got a lot to get into on the program today. Paul Kuharski will be with us later in the program. We'll get into all things Titans with him, the general manager search, what's going on with the coaching staff. We'll get into the quarterback conversation with PK. Lots to get to with PK later in the program. So looking forward to all that. We begin on the draft part of this. I heard Trevor Maddich on with Stilly yesterday. And as always, Trevor Maddich, very good, very informative for his Tuesday visits with Jared Stillman. And the top of the draft was brought up in terms of the Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward part of this. And it stemmed from a conversation that Jared brought up about Mel Kiper and his big board. And essentially, he had Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward both in the top 5 on his billboard. I think Sanders was 4, Ward was 5, or the other way around, one of the two. And the question from Jared to Trevor Maddich was essentially, like, do we actually believe that Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward are both top 5 players in this draft? Or are they both on the big board for Mel Kiper in the top 5 because he's hedging his bets and he knows that they're going to go high? Like, how do we feel about that? And here's what Trevor Maddich had to say on the top of the draft and the quarterbacks.
You mentioned that some people have a second-round grade on Shedeur, but it doesn't really matter. There's only 2 quarterbacks you would even consider taking in the first round in this draft, and Shedeur and Cam Ward are those 2 guys. And so do I think, just from a standpoint of pure talent at any position, that those are the 4th and 5th best in the draft? No, absolutely not. But they do get the extra credit because of quarterback, and I think they'll both go in the top 5.
So Trevor Maddich with an interesting point there, and I think it's one that's worth discussing here. So if you believe that Shedeur Sanders and or Cam Ward and or both are top 5 players in the draft, then taking them number 1 overall because they play quarterback, Joe, I don't think is that big of a reach, right?
Not
like if you believe that they're both top 5 players when you grade it out in the draft, even if you don't have them at number 1, I think sometimes that quarterback tax, as I like to call it, you can pay when you have somebody that's that close. What if you think like Shedeur Sanders is like 20th or 25th, or as Trevor Maddich pointed out in that clip, what if you got a second round grade on him? Like, can you really justify taking a quarterback number 1 overall if that's how they've graded out in your mind? Because I think he's right. Somebody's going to. Like, I would be, I don't know if stunned is the right word, but surprised if one or both of them don't go really high in this draft. But if you're the Titans and you don't have them near the top of your draft board when you're grading this thing out, how big of a mistake would that be in your mind to take one of them at number 1 overall?
Yeah, it's not what you want to do. Now, teams do beyond quarterback reach for needs sometimes, right? It's like, well, whatever. We have this guy graded maybe high second round. We have the 18th pick, but this is the best player at that position, and we need an edge, and we're taking the edge. And that happens. It happens way more, to your point on the quarterback tax at quarterback. So I could see actually like Sanders. I mean, I think Shedeur will probably go number 1. That's just my guess because I think he's the better prospect. And I can see like Cam Ward surprisingly dropping some. I remember it was only 2 years ago that Levis was talked about as the number 1 pick.
Yep.
Certainly was expected to be, in that high mix, and he goes down to the second. I mean, that can happen to a quarterback. If there's only 2 quarterbacks we're talking about here, it could happen to one of them, right? But yeah, it's not what you want to do. I guess it's just it comes down to it comes down to I don't have a problem if it's like, well, we have Shedeur ranked 16th or whatever, and okay, but do you? I mean, again, it's like there's how you grade them, how you rank them, but then that's the ultimate question: do you think he can be a great quarterback?
Right.
I mean, do you think that this, or are you like, well, I don't know, maybe, but we have to have a quarterback? If that's the answer, then you definitely cannot do it.
And that's what I think you worry about. Now, having said that, like, okay, let's say the Titans have Shedeur Sanders as like their 12th best player in the draft. Well, the ranking is one thing. And we've talked about this before. Most of the time you go by what your board says. I do think it's a little bit different when you have the number 1 overall pick. Like, there's a pretty good chance when most teams do their grading here that Travis Hunter is probably going to be the best player that they grade out. We're going to get to him a little bit later this hour. Abdul Carter probably going to be pretty high on most people's list. So I doubt that if they're being honest with their grades, that they're going to get to a point where they're like, yeah, Shedeur Sanders is the best player in this draft. Does that mean you can't take him at number 1 overall? Like, if he's like your 13th best player in the draft, but you think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback, is that worth the number 1 overall pick? Like, if you think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback?
Yeah, well, then you get into the other side of it, which is, okay, well, if you think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback and you don't take him, then, again, you can – in this league, you can easily get to the middle.
Exactly.
So then when's your next chance to take, a guy at the top of the draft? It's just, it's like, obviously, right now, if you had a pick, and I don't know for sure what these guys are going to be next year, but you'd probably wait till next year, to be at the top of the draft. But again, like, who is that? I guess it's Drew Aller, right?
I guess.
I mean, people going nuts about Arch.
Depending on if Arch comes out or not.
Yeah. Does Arch complete 50% of his passes next year? I have no idea. I know he can run.
Nico.
Yeah, we talked about Nico. I think Nico has NFL talent. Is he gonna?
I mean, if I had to guess right now, he's 2
big
years
of a
away.
leap.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. But I still like that's not why I would do it. Even I understand the argument that there, but I still wouldn't do it. I would just take the best football player. I mean, if you really believe that Abdul Carter is, a 10 sack guy for 10 years in this league and is a great player, or if you believe you have a chance at Travis Hunter and you think he's a generational corner or whatever, then to me, that's the smarter move.
I agree with you. I also, what's interesting about this as well, and we brought this up with the veteran quarterback discussion yesterday, and we're going to get back into some of that later in the show. But what if you think your best option, forget the long-term part of it, because I still think there's a really interesting conversation just around the Brian Callahan part of this moving forward. What if you think that your best option for winning next year isn't signing Justin Fields or Kirk Cousins or whoever, what if you think like Shedeur Sanders gives you the best chance to win immediately? Like, how much does that impact your decision if you're the Titans? Like, you have to find a quarterback this offseason, right? So what if you're looking at this saying, you know what, we really don't like Justin Fields. We got a lot of concerns about Kirk Cousins and the Achilles. Aaron Rodgers retires or whatever happens, and you come away with it saying, well, you know what, Shedeur Sanders may be our best option at quarterback. Does that affect what you do at number 1 overall?
Well, I mean, to me, if you think that, you must think pretty highly of him.
Well, that you think
a rookie's
really
gonna come in?
poorly of everybody else.
Yeah, but I mean, if you think a rookie's going to come in and win, and again, he's going to come in with a limited roster, to me, you must think pretty highly of him.
I would
right?
think.
I mean, I guess you could think.
Although rookies have come in the last 2 years and done a lot of winning.
Right. It's like, and I'd love to have CJ
I'd love to
Stroud
have
or
either one of
Jaden
them.
Daniels.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. I think it goes hand in hand. You know, I mean, I guess if you think that maybe you think he has a low ceiling, you just think he's like a polished prospect now with a low ceiling. But even that, okay, you play winning football at quarterback. Okay, then I would say do it, especially if again you don't like the veteran options.
I will take your thoughts on Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, and how high should they be ranked on the Titans board for them to be considered taking them number 1 overall. Got a couple thoughts to get to as well on the Cam Ward front. We'll get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5-106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, what should the Titans do with the number 1 overall pick? Let's head back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Jared in Spring Hill. Jared, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, good morning, fellas. I'm just driving on my way to work. So I've got to get to last week with Joe and Paul for a second, because that was like radio gold. Who's carrying water for who, and like just seeing Joe get all worked up and Paul just, I don't know. I get that, you know, the timing of the sources and stuff and how he's air quote not carrying water for Brinker, but there's too many you know, clues or quacks like a duck if Stillman was here kind of thing. But also, too, I do want to get on to the Sanders Ward. Now, I called in to the 104.5 show after the game. After the Detroit game. And I told them, I said, at this point in time, if you're trying to build in something, as a fan, I'm not personally believing in Callahan or Brinker or Carson. So I have been set on the idea of bringing in Dion. Let him be the head coach, drafting Shedeur, give him the keys to the city. Just his legend status, Hall of Fame status that he plays, I feel like would be able to help change and shift the culture and mindset. Now, it's a flyer. I get it. And it's a far-fetched idea. It could be. However, it looks like some other teams could be doing the same thing. And if it works out, it could have been us, is all I'm saying. And instead, we'll have Brian Callahan and Peter Skoronski and, you know, some of these other picks that we get stuck with in the first round, because I'm really afraid that we're going to take like a tackle. Like we'll trade down to 3 and take a tackle. And I'm just not excited about that. But fellas, great stuff. Joe, keep stirring the pot with Saul, please.
We'll do it later today. Thank you, Jared.
Now I'm going to be nice to him today.
I smoke weed constantly.
Thank you. We don't use that drop enough.
We don't. Your thoughts on what Jared from Spring Hill put out there in terms of the Dion part of this? Just go hire Dion, bring in Shedeur Sanders, start the whole thing.
Yeah, well,
I think it's probably, I guess. I was going to say too late for that.
It probably is. I mean, I guess, yeah, in theory it's not.
But we've not heard anything about the Titans coaching staff, so who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm real. That is really interesting.
I'm very interested to get PK's thoughts on that later.
Yes, me too. There you go. There's something that we can do other than berate him later when he comes in the studio. Yeah, the Dion. I'm very interested in the Dion Cowboys thing. I'm not just completely dismissing that. Yeah, here, I mean, you know, apparently people are really mad at Jared on the whole Brinker want to Callahan out, which, by the way, I haven't heard that from anybody else. So
I haven't either.
You know, so I'm not saying, I don't know. He said it. He said it on his show.
He did.
So, you know, I'm not sure there, but it doesn't seem like the Titans are going to be doing anything at head coach. It doesn't seem like they're going to be doing anything at any coach.
May not do anything in any coach. I don't know. Ty on the text line says, it's crazy how people see players differently. I watch Cam Ward, and he plays with such ease. Reminds me a lot of Mahomes with an eyeball emoji. That's
wow.
From Ty on the text line.
Look, man, let me be the first to say, I'm, again, the ultimate, just let me raise my hand. I was so sure that Ryan Leaf would be better than Peyton Manning. I mean, I'm wrong all the time. So you may be right. I agree. I watch Cam Ward sometimes, and I'm like, my God, did you see that throw? He just sidearmed that sucker 40 yards on a rope.
Yeah.
And then it's like, dude, did you really just throw across your body while like jumping out of bounds, and then you tried to throw it to the other hash?
Yeah.
Like, that's the easiest pick six I've ever seen given to the other team. So does that mean that he's destined to continue to like take chances like that? No, but I just feel like it's just kind of all over the place. I agree at times. It's like, I think he is the most talented for sure. I just with Shedeur, I see a guy who, you know, he makes the occasional mistake. He had a bad pick six against Nebraska, but pretty solid, man. And the ball, it's just the accuracy. That's where I underrated Stroud, and that's one thing I vowed to not do again in my quest to not be a total idiot about quarterbacks. Stroud, remember, I was down on him now. I was hugely high on Bryce Young. I'm starting to feel a little bit better about that. But with Stroud, it was always like, okay, great. He's got the greatest offensive line. He's got like 3 first-round picks at receiver.
Everybody's wide open all the time.
Yeah, but he was so accurate in college, and that's what Shedeur is to me. And to me, man, there are very few things that are more important than just consistently getting that ball into that spot. And I think that's where I think he's quite a bit better than Cam Ward, more consistent.
Skylar says the Titans drafting Shedeur, the only hope. Deion Sanders will not let his son fail. Deion is the only person that could shift the direction of this franchise. I hate the idea of the circus, but it's the only hope for the Titans franchise. This is from Skylar on the text line.
Is Skylar a big Joe Burner?
I don't know.
Let me look at that number. If Skylar starts berating me and calling me a Titans homer to get me pissed off, then I'll know for sure.
There you go. I mean,
But he's big on it.
Look, I don't think Deion Sanders is coming here. I don't think it's going to happen. Question is, number one, is he going to Dallas? And number two, what does that mean for Shedeur? Like, are they going to make if he gets hired by the Cowboys, are they going to make a push for Shedeur? Now, on the Prescott part of this, which you brought up yesterday, like they just signed him to a new deal. So I have not sitting here and like scoped over Dak Prescott's contract. I would have to imagine like the dead money, if they moved him, would be astronomical. So I don't know how that works, how that fits in to all of this and what the plans would be there. Again, I just find the whole picture coming together of Deion in Dallas and then Shedeur following there. I think it's hard to pull that off, because to me, Joe, and I said this yesterday, like Deion, I think would have to agree to be the head coach before you could really ever get started on the Shedeur part of this, right? Like, I don't think a trade for a number 1 overall pick is going to happen until like March at the earliest, right? So, I mean, likely.
Yeah.
So you would have to be the head coach, and in the back of your mind, probably be okay if you're Deion Sanders if they don't end up drafting your son. And is that going to be a thing?
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, so I'm looking at so it's apparently the dead money in a trade, $105.3 million.
Yes, I don't think that's going to happen.
So think about, we talked yesterday about them taking on some salary. That's not happening. So if you're trading for him, you're getting the whole contract, and then Dallas that's a huge number because the cap is real, and yeah, that is a problem.
So you can probably forget about the Dak Prescott stuff. Would be my guess.
Yeah, and look, I think Deion to Dallas probably isn't happening. I am in the next couple of days. It'll be interesting to see if it continues to be a thing, and then it's okay, or if it calms down. But you're exactly right. If Deion's going to make this move, then you have to. If you're only doing it because you're getting Shedeur, then you're taking a leap. Then the Cowboys are going to have to do some serious mortgaging for that to happen. And if you're Jerry Jones, is it worth all that?
Probably not. I don't know. Like, again, I am really interested to see, it's one thing we talk about this every year, the draft discussion in the immediate aftermath of the season and the draft discussion by the time April rolls around generally ends up being two pretty different things. Like, there's more information. Somebody wows at the combine, your favorite event of the year. Like, Anthony Richardson, we were talking about, like, should he really come out of college? And then he got to the combine and people were like, oh my God, he's the most athletic quarterback of all time. Like, the perception of these guys is going to change between now and the time they're drafted.
For sure.
I guess how much? Like, Charles Robinson, we've talked a lot about the quarterbacks and specifically Sanders and Ward. And he's made it pretty clear that there's a lot of teams that don't have a first-round grade on either one of them. Does that change drastically between now and the time the draft comes? When you have an opportunity to interview both of them, when you have an opportunity to see them both work out, to see them throw. I have no idea if either one of them are going to do the combine because that's not always a thing anymore. So we'll see what that looks like. But how much does the discussion on those two guys specifically change between now and the draft? And is there another quarterback, even though I think this is way less likely, is there another quarterback that enters into discussion between now and then in terms of possible first round guys?
Well, but I think I would say that's more likely than either of them significantly dropping. You know what I mean? Again, like maybe Cam Ward, no one is in love with it. People are worried he goes 11th or what. You know what I mean? But I think those two guys are going to stay the top two guys. That's my question is there is there a third guy? You know, I mean, again, like Bo Nix going in the first round. As of a year ago, we would have laughed at that.
Yeah.
But the Broncos loved him.
It worked out well.
Worked out well.
Yeah.
And they were, it turned out to be a good pick. Like Dylan Gabriel, the next Oregon quarterback. Or, there are other guys out there who definitely could elevate, I would say.
Jalen Milroe.
I mean, listen, so I don't know who did it. I think it might have been Sando, but I'm not sure. But someone had this like mid-season execs and who they thought was the first quarterback to go. And like 5 of them had Milroe.
If he played like he did against Georgia all the time,
I'm like, oh,
Jackson.
He's gone. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, stay the heck away from the NFL.
Right.
It's
a really weird one.
Yes.
615-737-1025, our phone number. We brought up Trevor Maddich earlier. He had an interesting take on another draft prospect yesterday that I think the Titans really should consider. We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Wednesday morning. We will have Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com with us later in the program. There's a lot of Titan stuff to get into with him, from the general manager search, what's going on with the coaching staff. We'll get into the quarterback stuff with him as well, so looking forward to that later in the show. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. So we brought up Trevor Maddich earlier and his thoughts on Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, and whether or not they are worthy of being the number one overall pick as the Titans consider those options moving forward here. One person that I think we would all agree is worthy of being the number one overall pick would be Travis Hunter. And he was brought up with Maddich yesterday on Stillman and Company about if Trevor was the general manager, what would he do? What would be his course of action? Here's what Trevor Maddich had to say on the Travis Hunter front.
I take Travis Hunter because I am fairly certain, upwards of 95% that he's going to be an impact player on either side of the ball, and probably both sides of the ball when you use him in packages. And so I would take Travis Hunter first. Now, having said that, I would be stunned if the Titans did not take one of the two quarterbacks, Shedeur or Cam. But if it were me, I would take Hunter.
So that was Trevor Maddich. Said he'd be stunned if the Titans didn't take one of the two quarterbacks if they stick at number one, but said that he would take Travis Hunter. And Joe, another thing he brought up there is, to me, something that the Titans are going to have to get to the bottom of between now and April. He brought up being an impact player on both sides of the ball. And to me, we've talked about that a little bit. We know what Travis Hunter did in college, which is why he won the Heisman Trophy. He was an electrifying receiver. He was a really good corner. So I think most people look at him and they say, well, he's got the chance to be a pretty darn good corner at the NFL level. Can he really play both sides of the football in the National Football League? It seems like a pretty tough thing to do. Having said that, if he can, Joe, that could end up, to me, being a pretty big separator, because that can fill two pretty big roles on your team at once if he's available to do that. And I'm not saying that he's got to play receiver every snap for you on offense, but if you're the Titans and you're looking at the film and you're getting to know the player and you feel good about his conditioning and you like everything, the intangibles, the tangibles, as you're going through the draft process with Travis Hunter, and you get to the end of it and you say to yourself, you know what? I think he can be an elite cornerback in this league. And I also think that there's going to be times within a game, within a series, whatever it is, that we can use him to our advantage on the offensive side of the ball, and he can be a difference maker there too. Like, how would that not be really, really tempting if you feel like he can do that? The question, I guess, is, do you feel like he can do that at the NFL level and play on both sides of the football?
Yeah, I have serious doubts about that. Maddich's answer there, I think, to me, says the same thing that I have been saying about Travis Hunter. He said, use them in packages. You're not using them in packages on defense, right? I mean, he's playing defense.
Right.
That's how I look at him. So, yeah, like here and there, I'm trying to think of the most, utilized two-way player that we can remember. I mean, Deion was a great returner. I want to say that here and there he popped up on offense. I think that's right. Charles Woodson, a little bit, but not much. I just think in this league, with first of all, I mean, even the mental side of the game, and defensive game plans, and just the grueling nature of playing on either side of the ball. I don't think there's any way he's like a two-way player like he was in college. I don't think that's possible.
I don't know that that's possible either, but I don't know how many guys we've seen exactly like him, though. It just in terms of how good he was on both sides of the ball in college.
Yeah, no, for sure. He's special. And that's why I'm kind of with Maddich on that too. I'm like, man, I mean, who's the best football player? You got a chance at the best football player in the whole draft? Probably going to go well for you if you take the best football player in the whole draft. He's the best football player. But to me, in the NFL, he's a corner, and I think he's a legit number one corner. It could be the best corner in the NFL before long. And then I think I don't think he's, if you flipped it around and some team was like, he's a receiver, I don't think he's going to be like in the conversation with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson someday as the best receiver in the NFL. I just don't. I think he's really good, and I think he could definitely make plays in the NFL and be some kind of a difference maker. But corner is where he's, to me,
Let me ask you this.
exceptional.
Let's say he didn't play corner and he was coming into the draft as a receiver. Where do you think he'd go?
Low first round.
Okay.
I think he'd be viewed as probably the top slot receiver in the draft, which, again, nothing against slot receivers. I mean, I'd probably take Amon-Ra St. Brown after Jefferson and Chase. I might take him next in this league.
Yeah.
I mean, so, I mean, that can be an incredibly valuable weapon, but he's not physically, he's not the same thing as those guys on the outside. He's like 6 foot, right?
Right.
And he's perfect size for an elite dominant corner. But yeah, I think he's a low first round pick as strictly a receiver.
I'm interested to see how teams view that, because look, I mean, this is no surprise. He said that, he wants to play both sides of the football in the NFL. Of course he does.
Sure.
So that's great. How do NFL teams view that? Like, are the Titans one of them? Are there NFL teams out there that say, you know what, we love this kid as a corner, and we feel like maybe not every series, but 15 snaps a game, 18 snaps a game, that he can help us on offense? Because if you feel that way, like, to me, that's pretty enticing.
It adds value. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like, sorry to bring this up, but like when they drafted Adoree Jackson, somebody were like, that's a little high for him as a corner, but he's going to be a huge thing in the return game. And we know that turned out, but that was the idea, right? You add value somewhere else. Like Chris on the text line says, is cornerback the biggest hole we have? No, but okay. But see, that's where teams get in trouble if they think that way, right? Take the best football player. First of all, I have no idea if L'Jarius Sneed will play another meaningful snap.
You might have a hole at cornerback.
Yeah, I have no idea. Like, Chidobe Awuze's had a lot of injuries too. Yeah, Brownlee was a very nice 5th-round pick. But look, man, if he's that good, believe me, it will pay off big time for you to have a corner of that quality. Look around the NFL. I mean, look at in the playoffs this last week, the value for the Texans of having a guy like Stingley in that game.
Yeah.
I mean, he made some plays where he closed on some plays where I'm like, I don't know how many corners in the league. I think in most situations, that route, for like, that's what Justin Herbert saw is a touchdown or a big play, but he just destroyed it. I mean, do not downplay what it means to have a corner like that. And I think Travis Hunter is a corner like that.
Yeah, I don't think you can ever go wrong taking a corner that you feel like is going to be an elite guy. I understand if you're a Titans fan saying, all right, well, we've got a pretty glaring need, obviously, at quarterback. You still have a glaring need at tackle on the offensive line, edge rusher, wide receiver. Like, all of those are needs before cornerback is a need. So I get that. But again, that's where the Hunter part of this adds intrigue, because like, if the Titans get to the end of it and they feel like he can help them on offense, maybe that pushes you over the top in taking him at that point. And you have the elite corner, and you feel like whether it's 10 snaps a game, 5 snaps a game, whatever it is, that he can help you on the offensive side. I mean, that could end up being the difference to me if I'm the Titans.
Yeah, look, I'd give the guy a couple jet sweeps a game.
Absolutely.
I mean, give him a little bit of space, and
yeah,
that could be a problem. Good point, Ethan from Lawrenceburg. How dare you leave Mike Vrabel out of the two-way player domination? Yeah. He caught like 50. He actually caught 10 passes, Ethan, and they were all touchdowns. And by the way, like, how, if you're the opposing team when Vrabel gets on the field, do you not know that Brady does not care about anybody else catching the pass but Vrabel? And then he still got open.
I don't know, man. I mean,
ridiculous.
I mean,
Patriots got handed all those.
The Titans, I can't remember. I know the Titans back in the day when they had Pac-Man.
Sure.
Great returner.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to remember if they put him on offense for a few snaps. If they did, it wasn't very much, but I think they might.
He's the type of guy that you do that stuff with too, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm here for it. I mean, and yeah, like if you can actually get like 15 to 20 snaps of receiver out of Hunter, that's a big deal. That's hard though. You know, I mean, like it is on either side of the ball, but I think especially at receiver, like there's a lot that goes into that position.
No doubt. Mike from Pennsylvania says, Hunter is intriguing, but I'm just worried. Is he a jack of all trades and a master of none? I just don't know if that translates to the league. I think Carter would be the safer pick. It's from Mike on the text line.
I understand that, but I don't think he is. I think he's a master of corner. I think and we'll see, maybe I'll be wrong, but I think as the draft process continues, that's what you're going to hear is people say, yes, he is elite as a corner and he can be really good as a receiver.
I got one texter says the problem with drafting Travis Hunter number 1 is that they paid a lot of money for L'Jarius Sneed, and that's a lot of money in draft capital for one position. I agree with that. I agree with it.
You're 3-14, dude. You suck.
I know.
I mean, just get good players.
But if it's not, let's say the Titans get through the end of the evaluation process, and it's not going to be a quarterback. I've said it. You know, my first blush of this thing after the season was, well, if you got the number 1 overall pick and you don't love either one of the quarterbacks, just take Abdul Carter. Because I feel pretty good about Abdul Carter being a darn good player in the NFL as an edge rusher. And there's no doubt they need an edge rusher.
Yeah. Visions of Trevon Walker come to mind.
Yeah.
Like, good player, but God, that's not a number 1 pick player.
Right.
Is Abdul Carter?
I don't know.
I don't know either. He's
he
freaking
looks
good.
pretty darn good.
No, he's good. He's good.
I feel good about him being a pretty productive player. Is he going to be an elite pass rusher? Because that's what you need him to be if you're taking him number 1 overall. I feel good about Travis Hunter being a great NFL player. And I think corner, you're right, is going to be the primary position. I think it's one thing to really monitor throughout the draft process is how much does the conversation of him playing offense come up with these teams around the NFL. We'll take more of your thoughts, 615-737-1025. More of your thoughts to get to on the Travis Hunter part of this. Plus, there's one thing with the Titans that I'm just really struggling to care about. We'll get into that coming up next as well. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Check out Vanderbilt men's basketball tonight on 94.9 The Fan. Commodores taking on South Carolina at Memorial Gym with a 5 o'clock tip-off pregame at 4:30. Coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com. Vanderbilt men's basketball presented by Athletes Unlimited Pro Basketball. Coming to Nashville's Municipal Auditorium February the 5th through March the 2nd. Go to auprobasketball.com for more details and to purchase tickets.
I got a correction, sort of, on the text line.
Okay.
But Caleb from Dixon says, actually, Rambo caught 12 passes, Joe. So I was right that it was 10 catches, 10 touchdowns with the Patriots. He did have 2 more with the Chiefs, though. He had those 2 touchdowns with the Chiefs. And still, he says, nah, this isn't like other places, folks. You know, you listen, go back and listen to the presser when, act like a dude,
I forgot about that one. That was a good one.
Yeah, well, that was all after this New England stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the things Vrabel mentioned is like, well, that we won 6 Super Bowls, that's talking about how he's like, I went to Kansas City, we went 6-10. We were just trying to find ways. I'm like, dang, taking some shots at Kansas
nice
City.
Shot at the Chiefs.
Right.
But no shots at the Titans.
Santa and Portland. I don't care who they pick at number 1, as long as when the season starts, we get to stop talking about the needs on offensive line. This is from Santa and Portland. I think most Titans fans would agree with that. Question is that going to be the case?
Well, yeah, I think somewhere in this draft, they're going to draft at least one offensive lineman, if not more than one. But they're going to sign somebody too. Who? I have not looked at the right tackle market or the offensive tackle market. Again, it's very rare that good ones get there, but it's not a crazy idea to think better ones than what they had last year will get there. So they're going to do something.
Yeah. I mean, I would hope there's some better ones than what they had last year available at right tackle. Look, this is, again, a situation where having a 3rd-round pick be pretty nice. So
Yeah.
we're talking about options at number 1 overall. I still think like the best option, if you can swing it, would be to trade down and pick up some more picks and still end up with like a Travis Hunter or an Abdul Carter. Like if there's a way for you to do that, that's probably to me what I would settle for out of court right now if I'm the Titans. And I know we're 3 months out from the draft at this point, but that to me still trading down, being able to pick up some additional draft capital and then signing, you probably would have done this before the draft, but signing a quarterback in free agency and going from there would probably be the way that if Robbie Stanley was in charge, I'd be leaning right now.
Me too, based on what I know, but that's where they know way more than us. So if they know, or they think they know, that one of those guys is actually the guy that they want, that they think can lead this franchise into the new stadium and into the next 10 years, well, then there you go. Then you proceed that way through free agency. Right now, and I think this is how it's going to go. I think that it's more likely that they sign somebody and then try to get out of there.
Yeah, I think so.
And try to add to the draft capital. They certainly need picks. In any scenario, they need picks.
No doubt about that. So one thing we're going to get into with Kuharski later in the show is the search for the next general manager for the Titans. And they've narrowed down that list. They're still conducting, second interviews here. I got to say, Joe, and I was talking about this last night at the Preds game with Gentry Estes from the Tennessean. It's real difficult for me to care about this general manager process, knowing that, Chad Brinker is going to be the one making decisions. He's going to be the one that's got final say. They put that out there. So you've called it the assistant director of the regional manager.
Assistant to the regional manager.
Assistant to the regional manager. That's kind of what it feels like in the search. Like Gentry kind of has the same thought on it. It's like, I would normally care, but they're not going to be the actual general manager. So who cares? I'm finding it very difficult to give a crap about this general manager search. And quite frankly, according to some of the reaction we've seen, I think a lot of Titans fans are finding it difficult to give a crap about this general manager search.
Yeah, can't blame you, because it's just, look, it's an important position. I guess it's almost like people look at this similar to the way they look at, how like Nick Holtz got so little crap this last year, I thought, from fans, whereas if he was the play caller, then I think half of the conversation would have been because they were bad. Not that it should have been. I don't think play calling was anywhere near the top issue for the Titans, but that's just how it goes. Often the play caller gets crap, right? And it's the same thing. It's like, who's that? Oh, yeah, guys. But now Nick Holtz had a very important job this year, and if he has it next year, apparently they all get raises and they all stay.
I guess.
Then it's a very important job, but it's just not the same. It just isn't looked at the same. I don't know if that's how it was with like Brian Callahan and Cincy, but it's just how it is. And I think the same thing for this. It's like, okay, so who ultimately, when it comes down to it, who's going to take the credit if they have an amazing draft this year? And if they have a terrible draft, who is everybody going to blame? It's Chad Brinker.
Yeah, exactly. So again, it's not like this search is unimportant, but like in the grand scheme of things, it's kind of unimportant. I don't really care.
I mean, I'm sure it's going to be a well-paid job.
I'm sure the person in charge, the person who gets it, will be highly qualified, and they're getting paid a lot of money, and good for them.
Yeah, but your director of scouting, your director of player personnel, all these things, pro personnel, I mean, all those people in a personnel department are very important.
Yeah.
So this person will be too, and no one will talk about it.
Exactly. So
congrats.
It's just a really interesting search here. Look, we will get into it with Kuharski. He's kind of done a deep dive on some of these guys. So we will get into some of the options that the Titans have moved forward here with in that process. But I was just thinking about it yesterday as some of the names continued to trickle out there and the interviews were announced, the second interviews, the finalists. It's like, okay, cool. Let me know when they've hired somebody, and then I guess I'll care.
I mean,
it's basically where I'm at.
And it's almost like, let's interview 17 people so that we can just constantly,
stay in the cycle.
Yeah. Have news other than, hey, look, we're a complete disaster.
615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll get back into the veteran quarterback discussion coming up next. Which option would most benefit Brian Callahan next season? We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Sponsored by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Wednesday morning. Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com will be with us later in the program. We'll get into a lot with the Tennessee Titans with PK. So looking forward to that. Welcome your participation as always, 615-737-1025. So, Joe, we've gone through the Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward part of this with the number 1 overall pick. And as we're going to do all off season, if you don't do that, you're going to have to go find a veteran at quarterback. So which veteran is that going to be? We brought up Aaron Rodgers yesterday and went through his numbers from last season, discussed the pros and cons of that at age 41. Kirk Cousins, we expect to be available in March when the Atlanta Falcons, according to Charles Robinson, don't really have a choice but to exercise his right to become a free agent. So we'll see that. And if that continues to be the case, if he wants to keep playing, all those things. There's Justin Fields. There's a lot of options that we've gone through on the veteran quarterback front. I guess I'm approaching it today from this standpoint. What makes the most sense for Brian Callahan? Like if you're Brian Callahan and you're evaluating, which I assume he's doing right now, your options at quarterback, and you get through the end of it and you say, you know what? We've got the number 1 overall pick. I'm just really not sure about Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward. And I just feel like with where we're at with our organization right now, the veteran quarterback option is the best way to go. And we'll figure out the long-term answer either a year from now or 2 years from now. Which one of those options makes the most sense? Is it Rodgers? Is it a guy like Justin Fields? Is it taking a flyer on a guy like Trey Lance or Zach Wilson and hoping that in their second or third stops that they're figured some things out and they become this year's version of what Sam Darnold was in Minnesota? Like if Darnold makes it to free agency, is that the best option? How do you approach this if you're Brian Callahan looking at the veteran quarterback market?
Well, you approach it how, with what you feel about these guys. Again, we talked yesterday about Jake Browning. Maybe he truly believes that Jake Browning is a starter in this league just waiting to happen, and they can try to figure out a way to try to get him. But does he love any of these guys? No, I think Kirk Cousins, it was just he had a weird month, but I still think that guy's got 3 good years in him. The long-term answer thing is what everybody wants, but if you find the right short-term answer, again, then you can be the Detroit Lions and be sitting here as one of the favorites to get to the Super Bowl as a number 1 seed with a guy who was on the trash heap 3 years ago. Just got to have the right one. Do any of these guys look like that? No, but I mean, I probably didn't think any more of Goff 3 years ago than I think of Cousins now. You know? Or
the difference is the age, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, the difference is the age. Yeah. But so there's that. There's also just the big picture question of, so if you're Brian Callahan in the Titans and you love one of the rookies and you're like, okay, this is the way we're going to go. Okay, so we already know that you have said very, very glowing things about Will Levis.
Yep.
Which, again, a lot of people agreed with you after Levis's rookie year, but then we saw what happened this year. So then, like if it just takes some time next year, and maybe whoever they draft is going to be good, but it takes some time, you have your typical rookie ups and downs. Then it gets to like, okay, so does Brian Callahan know what he's looking at?
Exactly.
When we're talking about quarterbacks?
Yeah.
And if not, and then they just went 5-12, okay, that might be it. Brian Callahan may just be better off with a veteran.
It feels like the choice at quarterback for him this offseason is going to determine whether or not he's still the head coach this time next year. That's what as we sit here today, that's what it feels like to me. Like whether it's drafting one of those two guys or picking the right veteran quarterback, it feels like the reality of whether or not he is still Titans head coach this time a year from now largely is going to come down to that. Like, do you make the right decision? I mean, one thing we're going to get into later this hour is Brian Callahan a lame duck coach heading into this year? I think you can make the argument that he is. I don't know that I'm convinced that he is, but I think you can certainly make that argument. So what changes that? Like if I'm him as we sit here today, knowing that it's not just going to be solely his decision, like Chad Brinker obviously is going to be heavily involved in this. Amy Armstrong is going to be involved in this. But if I'm him sitting here today, I'm probably thinking, which option can help me win the most games immediately next year? And maybe that's not the right approach for your long-term health as a franchise, right? Like if you feel like Shedeur Sanders is eventually going to turn into a really good quarterback, then that's probably the way you should go if you're the Titans. But if I'm Brian Callahan, I don't know that I'm thinking that way. I'm probably thinking, yeah, how can I win the most games possible immediately and try to salvage what was a disastrous first year for me and get back in the good graces with this owner, with the new power structure that's in place, and show that I have a clue of what I'm doing, right? I think that's probably the way that I'm approaching it if I'm Brian Callahan. Now, will he be able to actually do that? I don't know.
I don't know why he would. I mean, so he can want that, but I think that it's pretty clear that Brinker is going to have the final say on this. So and again, it's like, then you get into all the stuff of them working together with as Keith said, with Dwight Schrute, whenever Dwight Schrute comes in to the office and that back and forth on that, because obviously Brinker is hoping for a 5-year grace period and draft and develop. So if he thinks that one of these rookies could be the guy, then then you proceed that way in free agency, and maybe you pick up a backup, you pick up one of these guys as a backup, but you're not going for one of the top guys. And again, the top guys aren't even necessarily all that great. So
you can make an argument some of the top guys are backups.
Exactly. I mean, obviously, like in the discussions about this, like if you're Brian Callahan, that's not something you bring to discussion. Like, guys, I don't want to get fired next year.
Sure, exactly.
So,
but
can we try Kirk Cousins?
I also think it's a tough spot as an organization because I feel like if you're hanging on to Brian Callahan, then you should probably trust Brian Callahan to do what you brought him in to do in the first place, and that is evaluate and mold the quarterback.
That's what a logical franchise would do.
I mean, if not, like if you don't trust him to do that, then why are you keeping him, right? Like that's a big part of why he's here. And I realize that's a big part of why he was here was for the Will Levis part of this. Well, that's done. We got, a texter that says all this talk about who they're going to go get and they're going to push Levis in next year. I don't think so. Like, I think Brian Callahan has basically said without saying that Will Levis is done. Doesn't mean he's not going to be here, but their plan is not going to be to start Will Levis at quarterback next year.
No.
So, I don't think it's going to be anybody's plan. It's not going to be Brinker's plan, not going to be his plan. I get all that. So if you're him, like I'm still here, you still are trusting me to be your head coach. So let me handle quarterback and whatever. I think his voice and his opinion on what they should do at this position should weigh very heavily into the direction they go. Now, will it? I don't know. Like Chad Brinker may just say, I hear you. I love Cam Ward. We're taking Cam Ward. So you're going to have to work with Cam Ward.
Work with Cam.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, his voice should be valued, but that first year, that first year hurts. It hurts it takes some equity away when the guy you said you were so excited about plays like he did.
Yep.
You didn't really make him better, and then the GM gets fired.
Right. So if you're looking at one of these veteran options, I think there's pros and cons to all of them, which is why it's not a great spot to be in. Like Kirk Cousins, I'm with you from yesterday. I think checks every single box in terms of the leadership, the teammate, the positive force in the locker room, like all those things Kirk Cousins is great at. Can he play anymore? Like he was awful to end the season to the point where he lost his job. So is he just totally falling off the cliff here? Or was that some weird 1 month run where he just was awful and kept turning the football over? I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is. Rodgers is 41, and Rodgers has got a lot of baggage that comes with him. Rodgers also, if he's on, pretty high-level player and might be your best option towards winning football games. we had a lot of people both on the show yesterday and even after the show talking about Justin Fields. Like, why are we not giving more consideration to Justin Fields? Like, Justin Fields won some games this year with Pittsburgh. And then as soon as Russell Wilson was available to play, they made the decision to go with Russell Wilson. Like, I watch Justin Fields play and I say, you know what? He's got a lot of talent. Every now and then he'll make some throws where you're just like, wow, that's a heck of a throw. I think too often he's too late in his process. He doesn't see things immediately, and it's gotten him into a lot of trouble that way. Athletically, there's a lot of things he can do that I think could really help you, specifically behind an offensive line that's been bad. But there's also a lot with Justin Fields that just has not materialized, which is why he's in the spot he's in on this second team as a backup quarterback and now probably looking to be on his third.
Yep. I'd vote for him for the record, but but again, it's just because it's the least bad of the options. But Cousins is right there. The thing about Cousins is I think when he thinks he really can't do it at a high level, I think he'll get out. And also, by the way, I think he'll be a much better announcer than Tom Brady if he so desires, if he wants to be. That's a guy who is way overperformed, and he's been an overachiever, way overachiever starting from college. So if there's a way that he can get back to being a good player, then I think he will. And so, I think you can feel good about that. If he's still playing, that there's a chance that you got a pretty good quarterback. It's just, again, how much you going to fix that offensive line, because he cannot play for a team that doesn't protect him.
Said to our 1025 The Game phone line. Welcome in Sam to the program. Sam, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, guys. Good morning. How we doing today?
Good.
Hey, y'all are talking about the offensive line, and that's a perfect segue, because I'm just over here thinking, when are we really going to address the offensive line? And finally, we got a top 1 pick, and finally, we have an opportunity to address it severely. Why not just trade back, do what the Eagles can do, get an amazing offensive lineman, and get a quarterback in the second round? Jalen Milroe's going to be there. Why not take somebody who's from the Alabama system, who's very coachable, kind of like Hurts in a similar way, similar game, take a shot, second-round pick, Jalen Milroe, go first round, and get an offensive lineman and get more draft equity when you trade back in the first round as well. I feel like that's a win-win-win.
Thanks for the call, Sam. I understand the idea of addressing the offensive line. Number one, is there an offensive lineman in this draft that's worth taking as high as you're going to take them? I don't know. We'll see. Could you how far are you trading down? I guess is the question.
Yeah, exactly. This is just not. There's some years where it's like there's a left tackle who's number one, the number 1 pick. Brugler has a 2-round mock today, so which is very interesting, by the way. Shador going 6. That's interesting with Titans taking Cam 1. But yeah, the first time I'm getting to an offensive tackle is Simmons from Ohio State, at 10. So, look, if you love one of those guys, you got Membu from Missouri. But again, there's a lot of these guys are tackle guard guys, like Will Campbell from Miami, from LSU. A lot of guys are it looks like more like a guard in the NFL. And I know you love hearing
that'll go over well.
Yeah. Banks is the guy from Texas, is another guy people think is more, possibly might bump inside. It's just not a great, OT draft. But there's guys, and you could do that. I probably like the Milroe idea there the least of the things he said.
Taking Milroe in the second round seems like a good way to get everybody fired. It's just my initial thought on it. I like the kid a lot. He's just way too inconsistent for me. Way too.
I just don't.
I don't even think he should be in the NFL draft right now. I think he should have gone back to college.
I agree. Milroe and Quinn Ewers are 2 guys I'm like, take NIL money.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It'll be interesting. I like we talked about earlier on the show, mid season. Oh, okay. He looks like a first rounder. End of season.
Played terrible.
What the heck happened?
Yeah. 615-737-1025, our phone number. What are your thoughts on the quarterback options for the Titans to get to coming up next? Paul Kuharski will be with us later in the program. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5-106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Paul Kuharski from PaulKuharski.com has weighed in. Says, finally address offensive line after back-to-back first-rounders, according to that caller. They have taken Skoronski and Latham in back-to-back years in the first round.
Yep, they
have addressed the offensive line.
20.
We'll see how well.
Let's see. First rounder in 20, second rounder in 21, third rounder in 22, first rounder in 23, first rounder in 24.
Yep.
Yeah, they've been trying to draft the offensive line.
Varying results.
Someone pointed out in free agency, go get Trey Smith, which of course,
sure.
Boy, would that have been a better pick in the fourth round for John Robinson back when he came out of Tennessee?
Yeah, or the fifth.
Yeah,
because I think he went in the sixth.
That's right. Yeah, I forget. I mean, I know that Devin Fitzpatrick was, I think, the fourth round pick. Like, moved up to get him. Des Fitz. Did I say Devin? Yeah, sorry.
Well, that's about how impactful Des Fitzpatrick's tenure was.
Yeah, yeah. Lots of angry reaction to Milroe.
Yeah,
I mean, calm down. It's
people talking about jumping off bridges. Don't do that.
Now going with my guy Dane here, friend of the show, who we'll have on at some point here. In his view, that's 3 quarterbacks in the first 2 rounds, and it's your obvious top 2 who are the only 2 first rounders, and then Milroe in the high in the second. So that's a very interesting thing,
Look, if he's at his top level, then I think he can be a good NFL quarterback. Problem is his bottom level is just bad. Like when he's off, it's bad football.
I saw enough bad football from him in the second half of this year that I'm completely scared away from it. And again, I think that he's a guy who, because of I think he's a guy who, in theory, could be something like Lamar Jackson in terms of you build an offense with a QB run game around that. He's that much of a weapon as a runner. But yeah, it's just I'm scared off him based on the second half. It's very weird to me what happened. Texter says, do y'all think with NIL money in college going to affect and change rookie contracts? I don't know about rookie contracts, but it already is changing decisions. Carson Beck would absolutely be in this draft before, and he's getting more than $3 million to play at Miami after he got, I think, 1.6 to play at Georgia last year. So if you can get that kind of money for 1 year, then, and you're not going to be a first rounder. If you're going to be a first rounder, you're still like the bonus and everything, you're making still a lot more money in the NFL if you're a first rounder. But I think Carson Beck definitely would have been a contender to be a second round pick. And instead he's going he's going to play at Miami. So yeah, it's already changed. And this is where, I think Milroe and Ewers, to me, both of those guys, if Milroe's going to go where Dane Brugler says he is or close to that, well then, okay, then I don't begrudge you going.
I don't either.
Ewers, I really think Ewers should have just looked for another college team.
I agree but with the exception of, if you feel like this quarterback class overall is going to be weaker than next year's, if your Ewers just come out and see if you could take advantage of that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a really, I still find it hard to believe that somebody's taking Milroe high second round. I would be, if it ends up playing out that way, I'll be really surprised by that. Just because I just think there's so much, he's so all over the map when it comes to the way he plays. Now, look.
That's one team, though.
I said that Anthony Richardson was all over the map, too, and I didn't think he should come out, and he got drafted 4th overall. Now, it's not going very well for Anthony Richardson, so there's that.
But you can't begrudge the decision.
You can't begrudge the decision of him coming out when you get drafted 4th overall. Now, Milroe's not getting drafted 4th overall, but I'm just saying, if maybe he does, maybe somebody does take a flyer on him in the high second round. Got one texter saying, what about Jackson Dart? What do you make of him at the NFL level?
Yeah, Jackson Dart, Kyle McCord, Dylan Gabriel. There's a lot of guys, and one of these guys will end up probably being good, but I'm just not a big fan at all of the second, what the Titans have done, which is second, third, 4th round flyer on
I agree.
To me, there's just too many good football players, too many needs, unless you're a team that's so loaded that you have the luxury of doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, again, if you're Ryan Tannehill, I totally don't blame him at all for being mad when like they were close, and then you go put a third rounder on Malik Willis, and you go put a second rounder on Will Out. You know, those could be really good football players that could help your football team if you're in the win now mode, as they were at the time. I just don't like that.
Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com will be with us coming up next. We'll get into all things Tennessee Titans with him. And throwing it out there on the Brian Callahan front. Is he a lame duck head coach heading into next year? We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley alongside Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser. Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com is with us here on the program. Robby and Rexrode presented by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. PK, how we doing? What's going on?
Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning. We're lively off air this morning.
We are.
We're energized. What's happened?
Is
to
it
us?
going on the internet? I forgot to ask.
Who knows?
Are you transmitting on the internet so people hear our conversations?
I have not plugged into this unnecessary third-party video system yet.
Not yet, though.
I think we're all safe.
Okay. All right.
Could be coming, though. We'll
all
see.
could
Watch
be
my
saved
language.
by an on-site camera.
Stop MFing Chase behind the scenes.
Yeah, who knows? Could
But
happen.
I
Just
wasn't
kidding,
MFing Chase, but I will speak to Chase now. Let's just get a third camera that works.
I agree. We technically have the setup right here.
It's right
Just
there.
not quite
I think
going.
it's,
It
I
looks
think
good.
it's not even a camera. It's a cord.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
that's some
not
work to
even a
do.
cord.
We'll get
I don't
there.
know. Whatever it is, I mean, it seems fixable.
We'll see if we can do it. We'll see if we can't get
No,
that
we won't.
fixed.
I don't think we will.
So, PK, we've talked a lot about the quarterbacks. We got a lot to get into with you throughout the course of the show today. There is no shortage of topics to get into here. I want to start on the veteran quarterback front. We've talked about some of the options, and I'm approaching it today from the Brian Callahan standpoint. Like, what makes the most sense from Brian Callahan? And does it feel like, as we sit here today on January the 15th, is Brian Callahan like a lame duck coach heading into next year, given everything that's going on right now with this organization? How do you view the quarterback options from the Callahan standpoint, and what makes the most sense for him?
On the lame duck question, I would say it's all about this. I was thinking of it from like a Steve Underwood perspective. Steve Underwood at his best could calm Bud down. Now, sometimes there was just no calming Bud down, right? When he reached his boiling point, even his most reasonable advisor was helpless. All right. Now, Burke Nihill has that role to a degree, but Brinker is now pretty much his equal on the football side, right? So can Brinker, who's preaching patience and all of that, if he wants Callahan and this patience that he's preaching, and it would be pretty contradictory if Callahan's not terrible next year for him to unless he's doing the casting blame to save himself, to want a change if they're on any kind of plot of progress, right? So is Brinker able to calm Amy? Has he sold her on this patience that he's preaching, which it sounds like from what he said, like this is the plan and I've got her on board with the plan, if you're reading between the lines, right? So does he truly have her on that? If they win 6 games next season or 7 games and show progress, has he sold her on, hey, this is what we're doing and we're going to stick with it? Or does she have a moment where they lose to the Texans at the wrong time and this overwhelms whatever progress they've made? To me, that's kind of what it's all about.
Still, he said he heard that Brinker wanted Callahan out.
I don't believe that. I don't want to doubt somebody else's reporting, though. I use reporting very lightly with Jared. And
he's got some stuff right.
The way he operates. He's got some stuff right, and he's got some stuff wrong. So I don't believe that. I had a conversation about 3 weeks before the season ends that was highly contrary to that.
Why have we not heard anything on the Titans coaching staff? As it
I think
relates
they're
to
waiting until the GM thing is over. Not necessarily because the GM is going to come in and quickly assess what the coaching staff did and have weight in it, just because they don't do 2 things at one time.
But okay. But as you know, like, having covered this league forever, like these guys, if they're going to get fired, they need to know now.
Yeah, and get replacements in. I think.
Well, the guys who are getting fired need to go find new jobs.
Well, I'm not particularly concerned about Colt Anderson finding another job, so that's not a concern for me.
Well, he may not be the only one.
But yes, no, I agree with you. It's not well timed, but they have proven that they're not good at doing one thing at a time. So I understand them not trying to do two things at a time.
Well, let me ask.
How's that?
Let me ask it to you this way.
rationale?
Is it possible,
Joe is nodding.
since we've not heard anything, is it possible that they're not making changes to the coaching staff in your mind?
I don't think it's conceivable that they don't make one coaching change on this staff. I do not.
Like, would that
Though I think, and I do think this, I think Colt Anderson did a bad job, but I think the root cause of special teams problems started with roster construction. And I think the person that they're pinning roster construction on has left the building.
Oh, good. So Rand just gets blamed for everything, and everybody else is fine. Like, if they're
was the roster well constructed for special teams at the beginning of the season?
dude, hey, if a guy comes up the middle, I don't care if you're a mannequin.
No, I agree. You
block the guy who's coming right up the middle, or he'll block the punt and maybe kill your punter.
I agree. But there's a reason they ultimately added Justin Hardy and Darryl Worley, guys the type of whom should have been on the roster at the beginning. I don't absolve them of that either, Joe.
Okay. But again, that's only Rand's fault. Chad, it's not Chad.
It's everybody's fault.
Okay. Chad too?
Sure.
You sure?
Sure.
Okay.
It's everybody's
fault. Does it hurt to say that?
It doesn't hurt.
Is he going to get mad at you?
It doesn't hurt to say that, and I don't care if he's mad at me. You're going way overboard with this.
He's having way too much fun with this. Look at the smile on his
I'm
face.
just wondering. No, I mean, look, that's.
At some
fine.
point, if you keep going with that, I'm going to say exactly what it is. So be careful.
What does that mean?
I mean, I know exactly where that comes from and what you're doing. So if we want to talk about it, we'll talk about it.
Now I'm so confused and intrigued at the same time.
Well, but you'd be wise to get to a break before we go there.
We still got some things to talk about before we do that. So on the Titans coaching staff front, I think everybody's looking for Colt Anderson. Do you think it's possible that Nick Holtz also could be out?
I think it would be second in line. And look, I don't think Frank Bush. I wasn't a fan of Frank Bush hiring. Frank Bush, when you ask him who he developed, he rattles off some pretty mediocre inside linebackers from a long career. Cedric Gray was hurt, but he didn't see development from Cedric Gray this year. James Williams came on as a special teamer, but at the end of the season, Luke Gifford, who's very much a special teamer, was the guy that they turned to at inside linebacker. They had a bunch of guys. I mean, none of them were very good, but did anybody emerge or develop?
Not to me.
So that's a candidate for me, but he's somehow got this kind of saintly, like, ooh, he's been here 3 times and he's been around a long, long time status, which isn't the status for me. The status is, how much better have you guys gotten under you? Now, it's first and foremost about the guys, and I don't think that's a good group of guys, but I don't see that he put a good shine on any of them.
What about Denard Wilson?
Denard Wilson is a very interesting question. Now, that's the one.
I'm not saying should he be fired, but it just like, how was he viewed? Like, what kind of a job did he do this last year?
Yeah, I mean, I think they put some miraculous spin on it. I mean, this defense, I don't know if it finished first or second in pass defense. But I mean, these yardage
when they
numbers,
run for 300, they'll throw for 80, and you'll lose by 30.
Yeah, these yardage numbers, even overall yardage, are incredibly hollow. They started with bad field position, so they're in a tough spot there. But the red zone stuff was garbage. Takeaways were garbage, and sacks were garbage. And those are 3 really big numbers that if your yardage numbers are good, it makes them irrelevant.
And points per game as well.
The points allowed. Even if you take out I think it's 4 touchdowns, 3 pick sixes, and a punt return, and they're quick to point that out. You take that out, and their scoring numbers are not significantly better without those 4. So, I mean, I think Denard Wilson. Denard Wilson can be a good coach. I think he was maybe he wasn't oversold, but I don't think he did a great job. Injuries obviously hurt them, but I do think he's a Rand Carthon guy coming in the door. And when you see Cincinnati's defensive coordinator, who is a good coach, who was crushed by injuries this year, he hasn't been snatched up yet.
Of their organization.
Yeah,
too,
he hasn't been snatched up yet. I think he'll be hot in the circles of new coaches. That's a reason to move if you're thinking about moving, and he's got a relationship with Callahan. So that's something to consider. That would be a more extreme move, but I don't know where he stands. I don't know where Denard stands with Brink.
Well, by the way, on that point, Lou Anarumo, who was the DC in Cincinnati, is interviewing with Indianapolis and Atlanta this week so far.
Don't let the Colts get him.
Yeah, we'll see.
Chris Ballard will finally
Chris Ballard
have his revenge on the
get
NFL.
in there, and finally they'll win the division.
And the
Maybe.
Colts have some players outside of DeForest Buckner and Grover Cleveland and cornerback or two.
Wait, Grover Cleveland?
No, Grover Stewart. Grover Cleveland. Grover Stewart. There's a presidential category on Jeopardy lately.
Who knew?
If
No
only
wonder
we
they
could
hadn't
get
been winning
Denard-
games.
If Denard Walker could coach Grover Cleveland, can you imagine what this league?
There should be a
Turn the league on
Grover.
its head.
There should be a Grover category on Jeopardy, and there would be Cleveland, Stewart, and
Sesame Street.
Sesame
Yeah,
Street.
there
Yeah.
you go.
And then you got to find two more
An
Grovers.
extensive category.
We welcome your input for two more Grovers for a Jeopardy category.
615-737-1025, our phone number. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up next. Paul Kuharski in the house for the rest of the program as well. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
Maddie says, not saying I'm a Rogers fan, but bland noodles taste pretty good when you've been eating poop sandwiches. I think that's a well put.
Well
Maddie?
articulated.
Yeah. How about taquitos? You can take the onion out, but like the other food is going to be onion smell. If that is what it requires, and that's what is the currency in this organization, they're screwed.
Yes.
They're totally screwed.
It is that time of the day.
Onions are the currency.
Time for the Rex Rant.
That
With Joe
was
Rexrode.
That was a mashup of two things, right? 'Cause
Yes,
I
that
thought
was two different things.
That was seamless. I thought, wait a minute,
Onions
onions are
is
the currency.
Did you do onions?
I mean, I'm sure there are
currency,
some
and poop
lands,
sandwiches.
where onions are currency.
Could be.
Maybe. Sounds
I
like a
mean,
National Geographic
It
special.
does. It does.
Like in the movie of what's his name? Gosh darn it. Awesome movie.
That really narrows it
I
down.
keep wanting to say
Crush it.
I keep wanting to say Balky from Perfect Strangers, but it's not him. It's
Yeah, that
he's
guy.
nice.
We all got it. It's great.
Just shut up. Oh my God, help me!
that one movie.
World, help me!
Please,
Well,
somebody help him.
I'm not going to say another word
Balky
until we get the answer here.
Goes to Asia.
Text line, help me right now. You know what I'm saying.
No one
Start with
knows.
Grover.
Looks like Wizard Cape. I mean, come on.
Oh, hell yeah. Looks like Wizard King.
No idea what you're talking.
Oh my God. What? Dude, it was on HBO, and then he did a movie like where he, remember he got it like into the bus with the frat boys and they were racist, and then he traveled around the country.
They were racist.
Oh my God.
No idea.
Dude,
that's
where's
fine.
my
I'm
car?
gonna sit here. I don't care. I'm going to sit here.
Dude, where's my car?
This is ridiculous. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about.
This is ridiculous on us. He's giving us hieroglyphics and we can't figure it out. And it's on us.
It's such an outstanding explanation.
Also,
How dare us not know
it's a
what
step
you're
short of pantomime on radio.
No.
Radio pantomime with Joe Rexrode.
Hold on.
Go.
I'm not.
We've already got about 9 different guesses on the text
People
line.
are saying Falco.
It's very
Falco.
clear.
Rock Me Amadeus? No, not Falco. Oh my God, guys. He had.
He's making it like this
Listen.
is our fault.
It kind of is at this point. He's from. He's a British
Mort
comedian.
from Ork?
He was the protagonist. He was the antagonist in Ricky Bobby. He had the
You talking
HBO.
about Borat?
Thank you. Yes, Borat. God,
How did that is
Should
not where
not
I
have-
thought we were going.
it
when
should
that
not have been
started.
that hard.
Okay.
Thank
For you. We agree. It shouldn't
And,
have been that hard.
meanwhile, right now, look at the text line. There are like 20 Borat. No, there's like
Well,
30.
we finally got there.
Borats.
The problem
it
was
started
you not
you know,
thinking
that
of
one
Borat,
show
not
on
us
HBO.
not thinking of Borat.
I know. You're right. You're right. I'll take the blame on that.
Yeah, clip that up, Nick.
And that was a great segment of radio. So I really want to get into the media wars with PK is what I wanted to do today. But before we get into that, we should probably introduce. I did have a little bit more information to bring to the show today.
Okay.
We lean on PK for his reporting a lot. I did get a little bit of information. As you guys know, on Rand Carthon, as you guys know, obviously these guys do fly commercial a fair amount too. We talk about the plane, right? When they come home from games, but they do a lot of different trips and they fly commercial sometimes. So I was told that on one of those flights, Rand actually took a second packet of peanuts.
Oh, wow.
And there were people that were very upset about. Thank you.
He's very
Thank
proud of
you.
himself for that
I
one.
am so proud of
I'm
myself.
glad we suffered all the way through Borat to get to that. It was really good.
All right, can we restart? Can we do the thing where we're coming back from break? It would just play like we were off the air. We thought we were off the air there and we were goofing around.
Oh, man.
Thank you, Zach.
And
in
welcome
Nashville.
back, everybody.
Zach
It's
in
time for
Nashville.
the Rex Rant.
You got it first. I want to give shout out to Zach in Nashville.
You don't
My wife.
Davis from a jar of Vicks.
Yes.
An underrated one.
People who still don't understand that, I just can't help.
So
And the messenger and the message thing is just
that's what I wanted to kind of get into a little
All right.
bit. I actually defended you yesterday, and
Thank God.
I'm really not that interested in I'm not interested in getting into some. Apparently, we have like a Anchorman level
The feud.
media wars going on now. So maybe we need to put together a little video. We'll put some
who
faces
understand things
on that
and people
scene
who
from
don't
Anchorman.
understand things.
But I will say, as much crap as I give you, I think that's one thing that was was very much missed is that you weren't saying that you saw him. I mean, unless Brinker invited you on the plane, maybe that's the case. Did Brinker have you next to him on the team plane? Okay, so you weren't on the plane,
and I wasn't at Will Levis's pro day.
Right. So people who worked with Rand Carthon were saying these things about Rand Carthon.
Yeah,
that's
and we're upset by them. That's 2 sentences. If you can't comprehend those 2 sentences, you shouldn't be in position where I am hearing from. I mean, it's so basic.
I don't understand. Obviously, we talked yesterday about the interview that was done across the street with Rand Carthon. I don't really understand even from his perspective, making that sound like it was a shot at you. Like all it takes is reading the article to know that it was not you writing those things from your personal perspective.
Well, one of them
proudly,
and one of the hosts proudly announced he hadn't read the article.
Yeah.
So that's a great position to comment on.
Yeah.
Now I listened to the interview.
Yeah.
Painfully. Yeah. So I feel I can comment on it.
Have you updated your playlist?
No.
You're still
but my
listening
list,
to Springsteen deep cuts from 1976.
I was thinking of updating my reading list. That book about death sounded interesting.
I totally. There was a book about death he talked about.
Yeah, it was like what you experience right when you know you're dying, or right before you know you're dying,
awful.
which was kind of an apt metaphor. Career death and death.
So what we've learned here is
Rexrode.
Rexrode.
Saying, Joe, are you getting it yet? Or
I get it. No, I get your joke.
Rexrode loves Kuharski and was hell bent on defending him yesterday, which I'm cool with.
Exactly. I was just trying to do that, and just I'm intrigued by the media wars here. I'm intrigued. I think
there's a media war. There's some accurate, significant, like pertinent reporting, and there's some people who don't understand what that is. I'm not going to Rand Carthon's home. I'm not going to be invited to Rand Carthon's home. And I don't crave to be at Rand Carthon's home. If he thinks that's the key to a healthy media relationship, he really doesn't understand how media works.
Hell no, you're not going over there. Like, Breaker's got a great little
I'm not going to anybody's
fondue
home.
going on here tonight at the Breaker household. I'm not coming over to Rand's.
Any good reporter's not looking to go to anybody's home. I'm thinking to one person's home, and all of the time I covered, it was Wycheck after the Music City Miracle. I wanted to do something in depth with him, and he said, "Why don't you come to my house?" And so to do the story, I went to his house, and I incorporated his family a little bit into the story. That's one time in 30 years that I've been to somebody. I think I went to Keith Bullock's house to cover some video game thing where they had like guys were playing other guys in the league, so I watched him and listened to him talk to the dude he was playing against from, I think he might've been, it was his house. So I've been to 2 houses in my life, and not like for social engagement.
So you and Brinker mostly just go out to dinner. You don't stay in.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com.
How about you and your guy? You live in the same neighborhood.
Get into all
you have cookouts?
Tennessee Titans.
You probably have had cookouts.
No, it's not the same neighborhood.
No, adjacent neighborhood.
Nicer neighborhood.
Well, when you're at the football games together, do you cook food and sell it for the old Knights?
I've done some work to the concessions a little bit. Yeah, sure.
Right. Well, that's a lot more than I've ever done with anybody in a front office. So
more drinks and less dinner.
Hey, have you reached out to your sources?
Little Top Golf.
You reached out to your sources to see if
could you put source on that rather than
Ackerman
sources?
is joining Vrabel out there in New England?
I don't know.
If Mike Vrabel hires Craig Ackerman, I mean, my Twitter is going to be unbelievable. I'm going to go back and get the blocked punt from Page, which there's video of, and I'm going to send it to everybody I know in New England and say, this guy got Ryan Stonehouse nearly paralyzed and then found a high school job at which he did this.
Hey.
That's brutal, man.
Leave the guy pretty good this year.
I hope he gets that job.
615.
I'm rooting for him.
Why?
Because he's a nice guy. The problem with him is that you guys had to ask him 17 questions every press conference. Hey, what do you look for in someone covering kicks? What? It's his 4th year as special teams coach. We're still doing this?
I blame you. 4th year special teams coach. He was just as bad as he was, 1st year and 6th year.
Got one more hour with Paul Kuharski coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
That sounds like tampering.
It does.
Stand back. There's a hurricane coming through.
Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com with us for the next hour, talking all things Titans. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Big A, I brought this up earlier in the show. It's pretty difficult for me to really care about this Titans general manager search right now. However, there is a Titans general manager search going on. So what do you make of where things currently are in that process? And if you had to identify a favorite right now, who do you think it would be?
Oh, I have no idea about a favorite. Somebody pronounced a favorite early, and the favorite was in the 40% that didn't get called back. So
is that one of the Green Bay folks?
No, Reggie
McKenzie.
Your outlet pronounced Reggie McKenzie as the favorite when the initial 10 came out. So I am surprised by the quality of these candidates. I mean, I thought that they would have trouble drawing people. I am really surprised that the NFL has judged this job to be, paraphrasing, like the paramount job in the Titans front office. I don't know how the Titans convinced the league of that, which meant that teams couldn't turn down interview requests, which is fine. I think it's a lateral move, probably in effect for some of these people. But Ian Cunningham from Chicago was a candidate for this job when Rand Carthon got it.
Yep.
Not that does anything great. The other candidates from that we've never heard from again. But Spytek, Dobbs.
All right, for the listener, review the
John
finalists.
Spytek, Buccaneers assistant general manager. Ed Dobbs, Colts assistant general manager. Terrence Gray, Bills director of player personnel. Mike Borgonzi, the Chiefs assistant general manager. That's a big one.
Yep.
Ian Cunningham, Bears assistant general manager. John Eric Sullivan, Packers vice president of player personnel. And I think people look, I wrote this yesterday, at Ian Cunningham, who's from the Bears, and think, well, I don't want somebody from the Bears. Well, he's been with good teams before that. And they think the same thing about Ed Dobbs. Well, I don't want a guy from the Colts. The Colts stink. Well, if you look, Cunningham, first off, these guys could be making spectacular recommendations to their bosses and being brushed aside or whatever. But Cunningham.
How do you really get down to
you
that?
don't. But Cunningham worked with the Ravens for a long time under Ozzie Newsome. Who's maybe the greatest general manager of all time. And he worked for the Eagles under Howie Roseman, who is a
pretty darn good one.
Dobbs, before working with Chris Ballard, worked in other good places. Sullivan's an extreme on the other side. He works only for the Packers and only knows the Packers way. So what do you want there in terms of stuff? I think this is a pretty decent list of candidates, considering what we all think, that it's not such a great job.
Well, it's still, we were talking about this earlier. Look, I am personally, and you can join me or not. You probably won't, PK. I am personally going to hold Brinker accountable if they make bad picks.
Yes.
But and I think he gets credit if they make good picks. That's just how I look at it. But it doesn't mean that this job as assistant regional manager isn't important, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to the job that is very critical. Again, it's like I made the comparison earlier of Nick Holtz. It's like he's not the play caller, so he took way less crap this year just from like the fans and media that most OCs do, right? Especially for a team this bad offensively, a 3-14 team. Because everybody knows he's not calling the plays, but still a critical job. If it's not a candidate for this job are people going to look at it like, are people going to diminish what my work was if it was good because everybody kind of knows the deal with Brinker?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest question here. I look forward to being in a position to ask Brinker about it. It seems like he's insulated or trying to insulate in a way where he's got the most power and the least accountability. Though, he's put it on the record several times that he's got final say and final authority on all football matters. So I don't know how he can get away from any decisions made, except later to say, well, I let my general manager make those decisions.
But no one's buying that.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
all that matters is if Amy buys it.
Yeah,
I
will
guess,
Amy buy it is the question. And how much can he get Amy on a string is the question. But, you know, and they haven't used the word collaboration, right? We haven't heard the word collaboration, I don't think, once in his in the releases that they put out, or in the articles that they put out with Wyatt talking to these guys first, and then in the conversations that I had, that Tehran had, that Nick Suss had, whoever else had, we haven't seen the word collaboration. So the combination of not using the word collaboration, which is now a poison word based on the failure of collaboration.
Yeah, and because so many of us have made fun of it.
Yeah, and with the reminder multiple times that he's got final authority, I think we put everything on Brinker's plate, whether he's aiming it at the general manager or not. Chad Brinker doesn't have final authority and not decide what they're doing with this number 1 pick in terms of using it or trading it or any of that. And things fall on him. The buck stops with him, period. But it's not it's less significant, this position. It's not insignificant to be the chief guy's right-hand man.
Well, and it may end up being a lateral move in function. It's not a lateral move in title. How big a deal is that to these people, right?
And the NFL seems to think it's a significant position.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to build your resume, getting what the NFL says is a significant position is a good thing to have as the most recent job on your resume.
Yeah. I mean, look, again, John Lynch is the Niners GM. He gets a lot. I mean, he's the GM. He gets credit, but Kyle Shanahan has final say, right? I mean, I think that's
pretty
everybody
well established.
That's reported. That's known. So I guess how is that different?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's just, does anybody else really have this power structure, this way of doing things?
Yeah.
And is that the most effective model? I don't know. Like, I've never
They're revolutionizing the NFL.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's, and then in terms of the GM, like you bring up Barganzi from Kansas City. Like, I think he's high on a lot of people's lists, not only here with the Titans, but just the future of what he could be looking around the league. I think there's an assumption that it's just going to end up being John Eric Sullivan, and that's going to be the way things end up here from a lot of Titans fans. And maybe it is. I would be pleasantly surprised if it wasn't that, and it ended up being, Barganzi or somebody else.
I think him or Cunningham, who I think are legit candidates for like different, like higher level, quote unquote, GM jobs, GM jobs with autonomy. If they got either of those guys, then I would be impressed.
Yeah. I mean, those are people you'd want in your organization.
Yes.
I think one of whom you were, considering having run your organization as recently as 2 years ago. Look, it's hard. There's a lot written now. I was listening to you guys coming in about your level of interest in this. I mean, I've avoided this. Everybody writes capsules on these guys and big analysis.
Johnny's got a tweet every time.
Yeah.
I mean, I tweet that they've interviewed, but all you're doing when you do those capsules is rewriting the bios that are on the team's websites that they work for now. So you can get that if you're interested in Dodge, you go to the Colts website and see now a couple of these guys don't have bios on their website, but they do have Wikipedias. So I don't think I served my readership very well to have that. I did a little survey of 4 personnel guys I know, like knowing what you know about what the Titans want on this job. Who do you think's well suited? And I did a little poll there, and Thomas Dimitroff did well in that because they thought he would serve the role of what Brinker has said he's looking for. Well, and he didn't make the final cut to 6, but I think it's more of a hurry up and wait situation. Like you guys said, when we know who the guy is, I want to dig into the guy. I want to hear from the guy. I want to know all of that. Right now, I mean, people may be curious to click on anything you write about them, but I don't know how much I can offer new outside of talking to the people I know and finding out what they think about these guys, which I've squeezed, what I can out of those people, and that's it.
First
What
off,
do you have,
a couple
Robby?
things here. Number one, shout out to DJ Burnside for putting together a nice DeForest Buckner and Grover Cleveland leaving the field after a big win on Twitter. I've now retweeted that at our Stanley NHL. So it's good to see Grover Cleveland getting things done.
Check that out.
Secondly, I will say you brought up Johnny real quick on the Glendon front. It has been nice this week with Vrabel being hired in New England. Vrabel got hired in the clip of him saying, "Losing sucks, Gentry," made the rounds again.
Oh,
and we got to live
Trey
Avery one more time, baby.
Not
Loved
one more time. That's going to live on.
It's gonna
Johnny,
live
so
on.
he's been all blasted
all over Boston.
New Hampshire,
Yeah.
Rhode Island. They all know Johnny G now.
High moment for Gentry.
You think
I mean,
Trey
they're all
Avery?
wondering who Gentry is, and they're all wondering, who is this guy? Who's Trey Avery, and why is somebody asking about it?
Pardon me. Hold on.
Mike, Trey Avery.
Mike.
By the way, real quick,
Whispering Johnny.
on the same front, I just want to shout out Richard Snyder on the YouTube chat, Grover Washington Jr., saxophone player, and then Grover Cleveland Alexander mentioned on the text line. So
Playing
there
baseball.
we go. We've got Grovers.
We've got
our Grovers.
category filled.
Yes. And Grover, Cleveland, Alexander, you could stretch into two.
You could.
Crews if you wanted.
You could.
Yeah. This is a beautiful illustration. You see this? Follow at Dennis J. Burnside on Twitter if you're still on that hellscape. It'll make it better for you.
615-737-1025. We'll get into some quarterback options with PK coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Paul Kuharski with us here on the program, talking all things Titans. We'll take your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Had a lot of discussion about the veteran quarterback options for the Titans. Obviously, pick number one, they have the option of Shedeur Sanders and or Cam Ward if they want to take it. If not, veteran options, not plentiful and not necessarily great out there for the Titans. Let's start with this. I read off the numbers yesterday, PK. Aaron Rodgers this year, 63% completion percentage, almost 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, 11 picks, 6.7 yards an attempt. He's 41 years old, and as we know, there's a lot of baggage that comes with him. If the Jets part ways with him, and we'll see what they do at head coach and general manager, but if the Jets decide to part ways with Rodgers, should the Titans pursue him this offseason?
No. I mean, I think there's just too much downside. I know he played better later in the season, but 41 is 41. His game's not close to what it was, and he brings too much. Never mind the circus and the attention and all that. That's fine, but the demands on personnel and him needing his exact receivers and all of that. They need a guy to come and plug in and work with what they give him. Not a guy who's going to come in and demand structure. Chad Brinker and the new GM and Callahan, for better or worse, are going to get draft picks and draft guys and pick free agents. And Brinker's in charge of the football operation, whether you like that or not. He has final authority. Wrong quarterback. Aaron Rodgers.
Reverse Robin Hood?
Aaron Rodgers, in New York, had a degree of final authority.
He did.
They're not giving that to a quarterback, nor should they.
No. Alan Lazard, baby.
I do wonder with him, though. Like, I understand that what I'm about to say is a bit hilarious. If he's going to continue playing, doesn't there have to be a little bit of self-awareness on his part that, hey, you're probably not in the same position as you used to be to demand those sort of things?
Well, if this is the job he gets, if this is the starting job that's available to him, then if he doesn't get it at that point, then I don't know,
Right. But if he doesn't get it, if he has to accept the fact that I'm at a point in my career where I don't get that, is he going to happily not get it?
I don't know.
Is he going to broodingly not get it?
Probably the latter.
What would you get?
Brian, if I'm Brian Callahan, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
He's not good enough to offset it,
I agree with that entirely.
So who's your guy?
I mean, it comes down, I think, to Cousins or Carr. Carr checks the ball down a hell of a lot. And I think you'd have to get that out of his system. But he's 3 years younger than Cousins. And look, if I'm considering Cousins, I got to get him out on the field, and I got to run him around, and I got to run people at him, and I got to make him cut, and I've got to see the physical stuff. And is he willing to do that, or is he reluctant to do that? If he's reluctant to do that, that tells me a lot. If he's willing to do it and I like what I see, I feel pretty good about it. And he brings me the leadership that this team is absolutely lacking. But I really worry about it. Second year off Achilles, better.
Yeah.
But at 36,
And already immobile.
Well, here's the problem.
Yeah, and you can't take Rexrode's opinion on this. I mean, he needs to put a disclaimer out there all the time that, he was worshiping this guy in college as a fanboy.
Yes, I was worshiping him.
Hasn't gone away.
It's like I went to press conference.
Just put an asterisk on it every time you
sign
talk
my
about
football, Kirk, and
Yeah,
then I'll ask
pretty
you a
much.
question. Yeah.
Do you have Kirk Cousins memorabilia in your home?
I do not, but I'd like some.
Can we
now that
come?
you
Can we
mention
come
it.
examine your home
Sure,
for this?
sure.
I could have
Apparently,
a meal at your
I'm
home.
talking about coming to people's house today.
If I could have a meal at your home,
Yeah.
that would make us a new level of friend, and I could inspect the memorabilia because I think
Exactly.
you probably have something.
But I got it. I'll
A
have to.
game program or something like
I
that.
suppose I'll have to make a place for Brinker, though. But yeah, we'll make that work.
Here's the problem.
You're a big fan of Kirk Cousins. I mean, you should mention that once in a while.
I've said
from
that many
your
times.
time.
I think Kirk Cousins
I
is one
didn't
of
hear
the
it
best
today.
people that I've ever covered. Absolutely, he's fantastic.
There you go.
He's a legit human being.
Here's
I
the
have served
problem
the people by getting him to say that.
that I think you could run into on the veteran quarterback front. let's say Aaron Rodgers retires, which I think is a possibility. Not a definite, but I think it's a possibility.
Forced by lack of options.
Which could be part of it. Derek Carr, how likely is it that he's not going to be in New Orleans? Now, Mickey Loomis came out yesterday and said he's got a high level of confidence in Derek Carr as they move forward here. Is that just lip service? Are they going to actually move on from him? We'll see. But let's say he stays. So Derek Carr stays in New Orleans, Rodgers retires, and Cousins either goes to Pittsburgh or decides to hang it up himself. Says he doesn't want to play anymore. Or goes to San Francisco. Then what? What do you do at quarterback if you're the Titans on the veteran front?
Yeah, look, the Titans are not at the head of the line. I think people make too much of this, generally speaking. Why would somebody come to Tennessee? Yada, yada. If the money's right, the tax situation's great here. Nashville's a great place to live, all of that. But Blake Bedingfield pointed this out. It's one thing if you come the first year with Callahan, right? And Callahan says, come be my guy, help set the culture here, and let's do all of this. It's a completely different thing to come the second year after he won 3 games, and you're attaching yourself to a guy that we were talking about potentially a lame duck. Yeah. And so you come in and you're like, well, if it doesn't go well, my guy might be on the street. Then the next guy might not like me, and I've wasted a year. And what I'm looking for in my last go round, what's every quarterback looking for, is a chance to make a Super Bowl run.
Yeah.
And this team's not making a Super Bowl run next year. So you're going to have to overwhelm with money for one, and you're going to have to sell like hell on the other hand. And there still are going to be teams that have probably better A, opportunities to win, and B, stability. Or you could join up with a new head coach who's at the beginning of that culture setting. So there's a lot working against you for a change that isn't working against you last year when a team comes in where folks will say, well, why would a guy want to come here? Usually that's not the case, but this year it is stacked against them in a way that it typically isn't.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just about every con you can have is now part of the discussion. So what you're saying is draft Sanders or Ward and just go there.
I don't love him.
Milrow?
High tide. High tide.
We'll have more with Paul Kuharski coming up next. Take more of your questions for PK on our text line, 615-737-1025, our phone number. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, the game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5-106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Paul Kuharski with us here on the program. Robby and Rexrode, brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Joe, question on the text line about if we're 100% sure Ryan Callahan will be back with the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, Kevin from Union City, do you guys 100% believe Callahan will be back? I have a feeling we haven't heard any coaching updates because they're waiting to make a decision at GM for the decide on if Callahan or any other coach will be back. I responded in this text line, all caps, prime time.
Listen,
Like
I mean, it would be awfully big to hire this GM and to have him come in and review a whole season that he
was not a part of, and then chime in to the ultimate authority on the football team, who is Chad Brinker, who was here for part of it and was part of the hiring process for him, and to then fire him so late when he's clearly thinks he's back. Boy, you want to talk about another.
I mean,
people wanted Callahan fired, but how would they feel about him being fired
now
that scenario?
Yeah. I mean, seriously,
I can't imagine that happening.
Yeah, the only reason you would do that at this point, after all that you've said and done, is Deion, right? Like, it's just like we are drafting Shedeur, and we're bringing in Deion to coach him, and that it can't just be, oh yeah, well actually this guy's bad, let's fire him.
The owner put in her statement that they were bringing Brian Callahan back as the head coach. Now, having said that, I recognize that this same owner said the same thing about Mike Mularkey. He's coming back. He's our guy. And then a week later fired him.
And I'm shocked with the mentions of Deion Sanders, mutual interest in Dallas, that talking heads have all just mentioned it, and nobody's been like, is this guy qualified to not qualified, but equipped? Not equipped. What's the word I'm looking for?
Well, qualified.
Is he ready?
Qualified.
Well, but
he's been a head coach for 4 years. Certainly, people have made the jump.
Tons of head coaches have never been head coaches. They're just coordinators, and they get head coaching jobs.
Agreed, but but most of them have done most of them have more ties to NFL level football.
So what's more valuable, being a head coach and being a CEO of a huge, like a college program, or being an OC or a DC in the NFL?
Jeff Saturday got hired off the TV set.
Well,
I mean, there's a lot of, Gerard Mayo, and again, it didn't work, but Gerard Mayo was just,
I just think
they liked in their
bizarre for his interest and that mutual interest in Dallas to come up, and for nobody to say, wait a minute, is this guy could he do this job? I think it's a completely legitimate question.
That's a legitimate question, but I don't know what you're referencing. If it advances, that'll be talked about. Yeah. All angles of that will be talked about.
I think that's the first question when it comes up. Is that for show, or is that for because you think he can take Dallas?
I think being a head coach in college football prepares you for some things in ways that you will not be prepared for by being a coordinator in the NFL. I understand you're not in the league, but
I don't disagree with that. But he's done it for 2 years at a high level.
But he was a head coach before that
at a school that not in the most. What's his record against premier teams? All of that. He successfully turned a program around, but
the worst program in college football.
Yeah, no, and respect for that, but. There are holes in Deion Sanders' coaching game.
I think what you brought up with him would be really interesting to see. Is all right,
that's my question.
It's clear that things got under your skin in a big way when you were at Colorado. What's that going to be like on a daily basis at the Dallas Cowboys if that's the job you take?
Right, or here with this guy,
or here, like the Kuharski
and Paulie over there
versus Prime matchup, which I now need to have.
Glennon, ask him about 6 cornerbacks. He doesn't even know their name on the roster.
Well, he's going to have no idea who Trey Avery is.
There's no chance.
This Kevin Baird guy, I don't know about this guy. Who is this guy? You a fan?
He did call him Kevin Beard.
I would love to see him hired in Dallas because I think it'd be likely a train wreck.
It'd be fun.
And Dallas Cowboys as a train wreck is great fun.
So if it does happen, what about the scenario of they've got to have Shedeur? So Titans taking on Dak, which, as we talked about earlier, is $105 million in dead money for the Cowboys, but
which never happened.
We're talking about a fantasy football scenario. Trading that, getting picks, getting Dak.
I don't love Dak, but Dak is substantially better than anybody the Titans have had in quite some time.
Substantially better than Tannehill at his best?
Well,
No.
a wash though. Outside of Tannehill, he's better than anybody they've had, since
I agree.
McNair.
He is better than Zach Mettenberger. You're right.
So, but that's not an ideal situation. But you could do worse than getting him and 12 and more. And then I think you'd want to trade back up from 12. So it would be like the Rams trade in 16, where they
Try to go
traded
up and
down
get
to
Abdul Carter or
15
something.
and then back up to 8.
Yep.
But Dak Prescott, look, he takes you up several notches from where you are right now.
If you have a good offseason with him, you could certainly get to the playoffs next year.
Yeah.
But
But,
whatever that's worth.
I understand how some people wouldn't love that idea, but you've got to put some perspective on and say, compared to other options in this market, where would you put Dak Prescott against these veterans we're talking about, or against the rookie possibilities? I think he's got to be unquestionably top, as much as I may not like him.
So Travis Hunter, I think, projects to be a pretty darn good cornerback in the NFL. The Titans don't necessarily need cornerbacks, although I have no idea what's going to happen with a Jerry Sneed moving forward here. We talked about this to begin the show today. I think one thing that's going to be important for not only the Titans, but a lot of these teams at the top to figure out between now and the draft. Do you think that Travis Hunter can actually play both sides of the football? And maybe not full-time. I think he's going to be a full-time cornerback. But whether it's 10 snaps a game, 20 snaps a game, 5 snaps a game, can he help you on the offensive side of the ball at wide receiver? And if you determine that the answer to that is yes, is that enough to push it over the top for you if you're the Titans to take him number 1 overall?
I think he'd play once you were comfortable with it, 12 to 20 snaps, depending on how much your defense is on the field. I mean, I think it would expand and contract based on a game shape. But I think he could do that. I think it's certainly giant added value. But I think that he's probably the best. I think he's the best player in the draft. I think if you're stuck at number 1, you take him. I think it's your roster be damned thing. Initially, I wasn't thinking that way, but I do think that way now. So it doesn't matter that you appear to be most stocked at quarterback. It's cornerback. It's unfortunate that you are that way. But I'd rather get out of number 1 and stock picks. They've got to stock picks. They've got to get more picks. Now you got to stay high. You got to stay within
15.
You got to stay within 8, I'd say.
All right, I want to ask you about the Vrabster. Did you watch any of his stuff this week?
I read his transcript from the opening press conference, which was pretty short. It wasn't a long read. And I saw a lot of Twitter off of his radio interviews yesterday.
So Vrabel, first of all, do you think he's going to have big success there? And also, if he does have big success there, not that people can really be any more mad at Amy than they are anyway, but what's the fallout in terms of Titans fans and her, if that's the case? If they have to sit here after sitting here this year and watching Derrick Henry run for 2,000 yards combined playoff and regular season and possibly have a shot at a Super Bowl, and then they have to spend the next few years watching Vrabel turn the Patriots into a contender again.
I think he's going to have success there, provided that in this year away, one of the things he has decided he needs to revise is his hiring for a staff. If he is still of the opinion that if he has a guy who comes in and interviews great, who doesn't have much of a resume, that guy can coach his offensive line effectively because Vrabel's a great coach and he can make people a great coach, I think that would lead to another downfall. I think if we see people resurface, too many people resurface from his staff here who were ineffective, that'd be a bad sign. He needs to replenish with better people. Josh McDaniel has been mentioned. Look, I think
McDaniels, but yes,
McDaniels. I think
Josh
people.
Wilson.
I think people will be. Your Patriots people probably want to wash their hands entirely of that, but that's a guy who's not getting another head coaching job. So you would have stability at offensive coordinator for a long time. So I don't know. You know, that's where the bar would start for me there. Do better than him or him. As long as he does that, I think, you know, he now Elliot Wolf reports to him. He's got the power structure.
It's
already.
clear from his answer to me that he's
got
final say.
Your guy Cowden's going to head in there and report to him, and you'll get good information on that for us.
Sure.
And so I think he's in a great position to have great success. He's got a very good quarterback. I'm impressed with Drake May. They've got a lot of roster construction to do. And that's another area where I think, you know, hopefully Cowden and Wolf, who didn't have much of a track record, can nudge him towards better players. Vrabel wasn't always the best player picker.
You didn't answer the fan question.
The fans here, well, I mean, between watching Henry, even though it didn't make sense to have Henry back here, and Henry was the chooser of Henry's situation, despite the insistence of some other people, like the Titans had magical control over him. I would think between watching Henry and watching Vrabel, who's likely to ultimately have better success than the Titans, I think not just Titans fans, but Titans brass will be chapped to no end on that. I think the Titans very much want to be smarter than Mike Vrabel, and I don't think that they will be.
615-737-1025, our phone number. One more segment with PK coming up next. Got some more of your questions to get to as well.
And I've got the gangster move Vrabel can make here too.
Oh, okay. We'll get into that as well.
NWI.
Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Final segment of the day, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Paul Kuharski with us from paulkuharski.com, taking your thoughts on the Titans, 615-737-1025. Josh throwing a question out there.
Joshua.
What do y'all think about drafting a quarterback and getting a veteran for a year? The combo there.
We've talked about that.
What do you think about that?
It's a lot of QB.
A lot of QB.
Oh, I think it's, look at what Minnesota did. Now, if McCarthy didn't get hurt, it wouldn't have been that intriguing because Darnold was doing so well. They wouldn't have made a move. Obviously flamed out at the end. And Atlanta did the same thing. Now, I wouldn't endorse doing what Atlanta did, spending $1 billion on your veteran and spending your first draft pick, because you're not helping your team with the quarterback that's going to sit. So I wouldn't love that strategy. And I don't really love the strategy of drafting a guy in the second or third round, because I just don't. Joe, I'm totally with you. Like, first rounder pan out numbers are terrible. Well, go to a second and third rounder and you're not finding,
I mean, you always find the random example, Brady, of course, Purdy, of course.
Andy Dalton.
Go add up the numbers.
Generation ago already.
Yeah.
On the Darnold front, do you think the way the last two games went for him were bad enough where he could be out there and available for the Titans? Because I've operated under the assumption that at worst, he's going to be back on a franchise tag with Minnesota. Do you think the way that it ended with him changes that?
I mean, it's more conceivable than it was before. But do you take, a handful of games that were awful, the last two, in particular, and does that wash away what he did for the entire year? I think once they step back and take a breath, I mean, he's still a commodity. So I don't know that it changes their plans in a big way, but it's more conceivable than it was before those two games.
Yeah. Seems like it's like we were talking long-term thing. Maybe that gets downgraded to tag, but it's hard to imagine not downgraded all the way to
be free.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The texter says Mike Vrabel's a 9-7 coach, period, end of story. Now I would argue, in 2021, he went 12-5. I think 12-5, right?
Yes, 12-5.
Yeah, 12-5.
Got the number one seed, and by the way, didn't have Derrick Henry the second half of the season. So he's not just a 9-7 coach, period. But
I mean, you can't call him a 9-7 coach when he did that. You can't.
But he also went 6-11.
He did.
Right.
So let's, I'm
his best, he's a 12-5 coach.
Yeah. I'm fascinated. I don't know that he's, like a Super Bowl coach. He's going to bring championships there. He's very good. There's no doubt. And I'm fascinated to see it unfold. Here's the gangster move that I told you guys about. I have to give credit to this to Doug LeMaurice, Kings of the North podcast, covered Ohio State forever. So Ryan Day grew up in New Hampshire, humongous Patriots fan. Like he and his buddies would go to the Super Bowls with Brady. Obviously he's the Ohio State head coach. Vrabel tried to hire him to be the Titans offensive coordinator 7 years ago.
Before LaFleur.
Yep.
And as it turns out, Urban Meyer's out, Ryan Day gets that job. Ryan Day may win the national championship with Ohio State. He also may be done with all that crap, even if that's the case. That's a lot of money you're walking away from.
Full of Barry Trotz.
But you can still make good money as an OC in the NFL, and that could be interesting.
I mean, that would be massive. But you really think he's going to you think he step out of it in the I don't want to do this NIL and all of that stuff, or
it's
more
the
of
fan stuff.
I don't want to hear about Michigan when I won a national championship. Screw all you people.
Yeah, I know that 3 years ago when the Vrabel column I wrote that everybody made fun of, or 2 years ago, I guess, right?
Yeah, they still should make fun of it because he's coach of the New England Patriots.
So?
Not Ohio State.
The job never opened, jackass. So, in that column, and the point was made then that with young kids in school, it was bad. You lose to Michigan with that fan base, you have young kids in school. It's that stuff is brutal. So, but if you win the national championship, no, he's in great shape to get. I would not think that he would leave now, but if I'm Vrabel, I'm sending a text. Yeah. Because that's the thing. The OC hire is really important for Vrabel, and that would be, to me, Ryan Day is
that'd be spectacular.
Is excellent in that way.
I would tell the people of New England fans of the Patriots, prepare to wait. He's going to be so slow and meticulous with this staff. Yep. I mean, just look at how he did it here, the initial staff, and then every time he had an opening, right? you're going to get a press release in about 6 weeks. I mean, some of this will trickle out along the way, but
Ackerman
this
will be
whole
hired quick.
staff,
You get Ackerman in there.
You got to
quick.
scoop him up before the other coaches get hired.
Will they do a thing where like the entire building and Ackerman walks in?
Welcome in, Greg Ackerman. Special guest Ryan Stonehouse.
What do you think the Titans are planning for the new GM? Do you think they have a parade route?
I don't know. I can't wait to see what
fly
kind
him
of
in by
celebrations.
helicopter to
When the
land on top
Titans
of the building.
when the
over there?
Titans were good, we used to always joke, what's the parade route?
Yeah.
Because we needed to plan,
Sure,
for the Monday after the Super Bowl trip. What's the parade route? What's the parade route?
Did you rip them when they had like a parade after they lost the Super Bowl?
I actually wasn't here. I was on my way to Hawaii for the Pro Bowl back in the day where a newspaper would make that kind of investment. It was
Go
tremendous.
cover that incredibly important Pro Bowl.
Hey, you guys have a nice parade.
We wonder why newspapers have struggled. They're sending you out to cover the freaking Pro Bowl.
Well, it's actually terrific because the Ray Lewis stuff just went down. And I was amid all the best players in the league to talk about, that stuff. But what's the parade route for the new GM coming in? Are they going to start it at the airport,
I think,
or will they just Great Circle
They
Road?
Drop roses in front of him as he walks into the facility?
I think the new GM riding into the facility on a horseback with Amy Adams Strunk on the other horse could be awesome. She likes horses.
Or you could do rickshaw. Rickshaw had to be on the list of possibilities.
But to your point, Amy is into horses.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
you could bring some out from her
didn't get it?
stable.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's very good. Very good.
BK, thank you for being with us.
Who's shoveling the poop behind that bad boy? We'll know who's in the real dire straits.
Go ahead and get off that horse. We got to clean some things up around here.
Who's the next long-term employee we're firing? Get your shovel. Don't block the box. Lock your locks.
Jason Big Joe up next. 1025, 1063 the game.